Okay, so ready to dive into a book that kind of turns the whole idea of success on its head.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink some things.
We're talking about the go-giver, and it's not about climbing some corporate ladder. It's more like, what if being a giver, genuinely helping others, is actually the smartest way to get ahead?
And what I find so compelling about this book is how it weaves these radical ideas about success into a story that feels relatable.
Right, it's not some dry self-help
You
manual.
get pulled into the journey of this guy, Joe. He's like this ambitious but struggling young professional, eager to make his mark.
Hungry for success, relatable, yeah.
Exactly. And then he stumbles upon this mentor figure, Pindar. Now, Pindar isn't about those quick fix schemes or anything like that.
And no, he's got a different approach.
He's all about these timeless principles, what he calls the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And honestly, they sound more like life advice than some cutthroat business strategy.
So it's like Mr. Rogers meets Wall Street, kind of.
Exactly. It's this unexpected blend of heart and ambition. And it really works.
All right, so let's get into it. Law number one, what's the first principle that turns Joe's world upside down?
It's the law of value. And this one is a real game changer because it flips the script on how we usually think about worth.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
It's not about what you can get, how much leverage you have, or even the size of your network. It's about the value you create for others.
So it's not about me, me, me.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
And the best part is, Joe gets to see this principle in action firsthand when Pindar sends him to meet this guy named Ernesto.
All right, who's Ernesto?
Ernesto is, get this, a multimillionaire who built his entire empire from, wait for it, a hot dog stand.
A hot dog stand. Okay, now I need to hear this.
Right. You wouldn't think hot dogs and multimillionaire would go together, but Ernesto had this superpower.
What, like he knew the secret recipe for the world's best relish?
Even better, he remembered every customer's name, their birthday, their kid's favorite sports team. He turned buying a hot dog into an experience.
Okay, that's impressive.
It's about making people feel seen, valued. And that's what the law of value is all about.
Wow, it makes you think about how you can bring a little bit of that Ernesto magic to your own interactions, right?
Absolutely. It's about going above and beyond, exceeding expectations in a way that makes people feel valued.
All right, so we've got the law of value, putting the focus on others. What's next on Joe's crash course in success?
Law number 2 is the law of compensation, and it throws us a bit of a curveball.
Ah, how so?
So Joe, he's still chasing this big promotion, right? Pindar sends him to meet Nicole, this total powerhouse CEO running a multi-million-dollar educational software company. But here's the kicker. Her office is like walking into a kindergarten classroom.
Wait, seriously? Like finger paints and a CEO desk?
I'm telling you. And that's Nicole in a nutshell. She challenges all these preconceived notions about success. She's got this playful energy, but is also laser focused on the law of compensation, which basically says your income is directly related to how many people you serve and how well you serve them.
So it's not about hoarding wealth, it's about expanding your impact, right?
Exactly. And you know what's interesting about Nicole's story? She had this aha moment where she realized she was holding herself back. She had this deep-seated belief that people who get rich, they don't do good.
Ah, that old chestnut.
Right. But she was living proof that it's just not true. And once she let go of that limiting belief, her business exploded.
It makes you wonder what limiting beliefs we might be carrying around that are holding us back. Like, are we putting these invisible ceilings on ourselves without even realizing it?
It's a question worth pondering, and it actually leads perfectly into our next law.
So we're unpacking these laws, these principles, and it's not about being ruthless. It's about being, well, a good human.
Exactly. And that leads us to the law of influence, which I think is where things get really meta.
Meta how?
Because it's not about forcing your way into circles or climbing some imaginary ladder. It's about becoming the kind of person people genuinely want to support.
I like that. So how does Joe get schooled on this one?
Pindar sets him up with Sam, a top financial advisor. But here's the thing. Sam's office, it's less like a stuffy Wall Street suite and more like an airplane hangar.
Okay, now that's an image. I'm picturing those huge open spaces, maybe a vintage plane or two hanging around.
You got it. But those planes aren't just for show. Sam's got this incredible network, what he calls personal walking ambassadors.
Okay, I've never heard that term in a business context, but I kind of love it.
Right. It's brilliant. These are people who are out there championing his work because he's so genuinely invested in them. He's completely flipped the script on networking.
It's not about what you can get out of it, those transactional relationships. It's about being someone who genuinely elevates others.
Exactly. And he tells Joe straight up, stop keeping score. And that's huge.
Mm.
When you approach relationships with that kind of generosity, it creates this ripple effect.
So true. You never know how your support for someone might circle back around, but it often comes back tenfold. It's like karma, but for business.
Exactly. And this idea of showing up authentically, that actually leads us perfectly to our next law, the law of authenticity.
Which I'm guessing is not just about wearing what feels comfortable to a meeting.
Right. It goes much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And this one gets a little more personal for Joe because he struggles to apply it, not in the boardroom, but at home with his wife, Susan.
It's like these laws, these principles, they're not just business hacks, they're life hacks, right?
100%. You can't just turn it on and off at the office door. You got to walk the talk in every area of your life.
So what happens with Joe and Susan? How does he fumble this law in his personal life?
Well, Joe's a problem solver by nature, so he tries to fix Susan's problems.
Oh, I've been there. We think we're helping, but sometimes it's the opposite.
Exactly. And what Susan really needs is just someone to listen, to hold space for her. And it's a struggle for Joe initially, but when he finally puts aside his need to fix things and truly hears her, that's when the magic happens.
It's amazing how sometimes the most generous thing we can do is simply be present, right? To just listen without judgment.
And this idea of authenticity actually gets reinforced by another character Joe meets, Deborah Davenport, this real estate mogul.
Oh yeah, what's her story?
Well, she went from stay-at-home mom to top realtor. But her secret, just being herself.
Refreshing, right? In a world of perfectly curated online personas, authenticity is a breath of fresh air.
It's what makes us human, relatable. And that brings us to the final and perhaps the most crucial law, the law of receptivity.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this law of receptivity.
Well, have you ever heard the saying, it's better to give than to receive?
Sure, it's practically a mantra for some people.
Right. And while it sounds noble, the law of receptivity throws a bit of a wrench in that idea.
Okay, how so?
Because it's not enough to just give. You also have to be open to receiving.
Interesting. I never thought about it like that.
It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You
Yep.
can offer all the help and support in the world, but the other person has to be receptive to it.
So it's about finding that balance. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. If you're constantly giving, 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 without ever allowing yourself to receive, it creates this energetic blockage.
It's like that saying, the universe loves a giver, but it also loves a receiver.
Right. It's all about flow. Think of it like breathing. You inhale, you exhale. Both are essential. So the law of receptivity is really about being open to receiving the abundance the universe wants to send your way.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've got these 5 laws, and Joe's been on this whirlwind mentorship journey. But let's be honest, does Joe actually get that promotion he was after? Did all this giving actually get him ahead?
Well, that's where the book takes an interesting turn. Because, things don't exactly go as Joe planned.
So he's out there living these laws, being the ultimate giver, and nothing. I gotta be honest, that's kind of unexpected. Where's the payoff for all that generosity?
And that's the beauty of it, right? Because Joe's biggest win, it isn't some shiny new title or a massive bonus check.
It's deeper than that.
Way deeper. It's a complete transformation of his mindset. Remember those limiting beliefs Nicole had about wealth? Joe had them too. He thought success was this zero-sum game, like if someone else wins, he loses. But by really embracing these laws, even when it felt uncomfortable or didn't lead to some immediate victory, he unconsciously started to redefine what success actually meant to him.
So external results aside, how does this new mindset actually play out for Joe? Give me the details.
Okay, so remember Rachel, the coffee enthusiast who was struggling to get her business off the ground?
Yeah, she was super passionate about those beans, ethically sourced, the whole deal.
Exactly. Well, she ends up getting this incredible opportunity to supply premium coffee for this huge new venture. And guess who connects them?
Let me guess. Joe?
Bingo.
Wow. So wait, didn't Joe want to break into that premium coffee market himself?
He did. But see, that's the law of receptivity at work. By focusing on giving, on helping Rachel, Joe became someone others wanted to support.
And that referral to his competitor.
It became the best career move he never saw coming. The universe has this funny way of rewarding generosity, but it often comes from the most unexpected places.
It's like that pay it forward thing, except on this whole other level.
Right. And it's beautiful because Rachel goes from struggling entrepreneur to potential coffee mogul. all because Joe put her needs ahead of his own perceived competition.
Okay, but let's talk about Gus for a second. He's been kind of the silent force behind the scenes this whole time. What's his role in all of this?
Ah, Gus. He's like the wise old owl quietly guiding Joe, and he embodies that connector archetype perfectly.
The one who sees the potential in everyone and brings them together.
Yes, and he knew all along that Joe's generosity would come back around, that the universe would reward him in ways he couldn't even imagine.
And I love his parting words to Joe because they sum up this whole book. The point is not what you do, not what you accomplish, it's who you are.
Mic drop moment, right?
Seriously. It's not about those external validations, those trophies. It's about internal transformation. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts success naturally because at their core, they are a giver.
100%. The go-giver really throws down the gauntlet,
Mm.
challenging us to redefine what success actually means.
And it's not just about accumulating stuff. It's about building genuine relationships, supporting others generously, and yes, being open to receiving the abundance that comes from living a life aligned with those values.
It's a beautiful cycle.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the go-giver, I have to ask you listening, what kind of person are you becoming? Are you clawing your way to the top, or are you lifting others up as you climb?
Because the ripple effects of generosity,
Yeah.
well, they might just surprise you.
That's it for this deep dive, everyone. We hope this inspires you to not just read The Go-Giver, but to actually live it. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep those giving muscles flexed.